Have you ever wondered if there are places in the world where Americans can't travel? Strange as it may sound, in 2024 and 2025, some countries have either imposed restrictions or outright banned American tourists. Whether it's due to political tensions, safety concerns, or diplomatic issues, these nations have closed their doors to U.S. citizens. In this video, we'll be revealing the top 10 countries where Americans aren't allowed to visit anymore, and the reasons behind these surprising restrictions. So sit tight and find out which destinations have made it onto this unusual list. 10. North Korea. North Korea has long been off-limits to American travelers, and 2024 is no exception. Due to heightened political tensions between the United States and North Korea, along with safety concerns for foreign nationals, the U.S. government has banned its citizens from traveling to the secretive country since 2017. The death of American college student Otto Warmbier in 2017 after his detention in North Korea was the final straw, leading to a travel ban that has been extended annually. North Korea remains one of the most isolated and mysterious nations in the world. The country operates under strict surveillance, and tourists are heavily monitored. Americans found inside North Korea without proper authorization could face serious consequences, including imprisonment. While there may be curiosity surrounding this enigmatic nation, the risks far outweigh the potential benefits for U.S. citizens. So, if North Korea is on your bucket list, you'll need to reconsider your plans. 9. Syria. Syria has been a conflict zone since 2011, with a civil war that has devastated the country and displaced millions of people. By 2024, Syria remains extremely unsafe for American travelers due to ongoing fighting, bombings, and the presence of terrorist groups like ISIS. These groups often target foreigners, including Americans, for kidnappings and ransoms. The U.S. government has issued severe warnings, urging all citizens to avoid traveling there under any circumstances. Syria's infrastructure, including hospitals and roads, has been severely damaged, making it difficult to move around or access basic services. Additionally, the humanitarian crisis continues to worsen, with food shortages, widespread poverty, and limited medical care. Due to these dangers, Syria is firmly off-limits for Americans, and this situation is unlikely to improve anytime soon. 8. Iran. Relations between the United States and Iran have been strained for decades, but the tension has reached new heights in recent years. With rising political hostility, the U.S. government strongly advises against traveling to Iran, particularly for dual U.S.-Iranian citizens who face the highest risks. In several instances, Americans visiting Iran have been accused of espionage or other serious crimes without clear evidence, often resulting in prolonged detainment or harsh prison sentences. Even those visiting for tourism or family reasons have been swept up in these accusations, leading to diplomatic standoffs and difficult legal battles. The political environment in Iran remains deeply suspicious of the U.S., which makes it a dangerous destination for American travelers in 2024. Iran's anti-American policies are deeply embedded in its government, and foreign visitors from the U.S. can quickly become targets of political maneuvers, arrests, or worse. Although Iran offers incredible cultural experiences, rich history, and beautiful sites like Persepolis and Isfahan, these attractions are overshadowed by the serious safety risks for Americans. For now, the message is clear. Visiting Iran is not just unwelcoming but hazardous, and the U.S. government is unlikely to change its warning in the near future. 7. Libya. Libya remains extremely dangerous for Americans due to ongoing conflict and instability. Since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, the country has been locked in a violent power struggle, with rival factions fighting for control. This battle for dominance has created chaos, leading to widespread violence and lawlessness across the country. As a result, foreign nationals, especially Americans, face serious threats when traveling to Libya. The US government has repeatedly warned citizens to avoid traveling there because of the presence of extremist groups like ISIS. These groups often target foreigners for kidnappings, ransom, or violent attacks. With no functioning government to maintain order, Libya remains a dangerous place for anyone, especially Americans, who could find themselves caught in the crossfire or targeted by militant groups. Security in the country is virtually non-existent, and foreign travelers have little protection if something goes wrong. Given the constant violence and unpredictable environment, Libya is expected to remain off-limits to Americans throughout 2024 and beyond. It's simply too dangerous to risk traveling there until the situation stabilizes, something that doesn't seem likely to happen anytime soon. 6. Venezuela. Venezuela, once a popular destination for tourists, has become increasingly hostile toward Americans in recent years. The US government has imposed sanctions on Venezuela, and diplomatic relations between the two nations have deteriorated significantly. In response, Venezuela has limited or entirely blocked entry to American citizens. The political situation in Venezuela is highly unstable, and the country is plagued by hyperinflation, poverty, and violent crime. The U.S. State Department warns against all travel to Venezuela, citing a high risk of crime, wrongful detentions, and poor health conditions. Americans traveling to Venezuela could find themselves targeted by the government or criminal groups, making the country an unsafe and unwelcoming destination for U.S. citizens. Additionally, the lack of reliable medical services and infrastructure further increases the dangers for travelers, leaving them vulnerable in emergencies. 5. Yemen. Yemen is another country that remains off-limits to American travelers due to ongoing conflict and instability. Since 2015, Yemen has been engulfed in a brutal civil war, and the humanitarian crisis in the country is among the worst in the world. Terrorist organizations, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS, have a significant presence in Yemen, further heightening the risks for foreigners. The U.S. government advises against all travel to Yemen, noting that American citizens face an extremely high risk of kidnapping, injury, and death. Additionally, the country's infrastructure has been devastated by the war, and there is little to no consular support available for Americans who may find themselves in danger. Yemen is a no-travel zone for U.S. citizens, and this is unlikely to change anytime soon. 4. Somalia. Somalia has long been associated with piracy, warlords, and terrorist groups, making it one of the most dangerous countries in the world for American travelers. The U.S. government advises against all travel to Somalia due to the high threat of terrorism, kidnapping, and violent crime. Americans traveling to Somalia face an increased risk of being targeted by terrorist organizations or criminal groups operating in the country. The lack of a stable government and the prevalence of militant groups like Al-Shabaab make Somalia a perilous destination. American citizens are strongly advised to stay away from the region, as the risks far outweigh any potential benefits of visiting. Somalia's security situation remains dire, and it is expected that Americans will continue to be banned from traveling there throughout 2024 and 2025. 3. Afghanistan. Following the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, the country has experienced a resurgence of Taliban control. The security situation in Afghanistan remains extremely unstable, with frequent terrorist attacks, kidnappings, and violent clashes. The U.S. government advises against all travel to Afghanistan due to the high risk of violence and the inability to provide consular assistance to Americans in the region. Since the Taliban takeover, many foreigners, especially Americans, have been viewed with suspicion or hostility. The risks for American travelers in Afghanistan are significant, and there is little to no infrastructure in place to protect them. For these reasons, Afghanistan remains off-limits to Americans, and it is unlikely that the situation will improve in the near future. 2. Belarus. Belarus has become an increasingly isolated country since the 2020 presidential election, which was widely criticized for being rigged. In response to growing authoritarianism under President Alexander Lukashenko, the U.S. government has imposed sanctions on Belarus, and diplomatic relations between the two countries have soured. In 2024, Belarus remains largely closed off to American travelers. The political climate in Belarus is hostile towards the West, and Americans who enter the country risk being detained or harassed by government authorities. The U.S. government has issued travel warnings for Belarus, citing political repression, arbitrary detention, and the lack of legal protections for foreigners. For Americans, visiting Belarus is not only risky, but could lead to significant legal troubles. 1. Russia. In the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war, diplomatic relations between the United States and Russia have deteriorated drastically. As a result, Russia has imposed strict entry restrictions on American travelers, and the U.S. government has responded by advising against all travel to Russia. The political tension between the two countries is at an all-time high, and Americans visiting Russia risk being detained or targeted for espionage charges. Additionally, U.S. citizens could face harassment from Russian authorities or be caught in the crossfire of political disputes. The current climate makes Russia a dangerous and unwelcoming place for American travelers, and this is expected to continue into 2024 and 2025. These are 10 countries Americans can't visit in 2024 and 2025 due to political conflicts and safety concerns. If you found this info helpful or surprising, hit the like button and subscribe for more on travel restrictions and international news. Let us know in the comments which country shocked you the most. Safe travels, and make sure these destinations aren't on your list.